It's all in the name. The name vampire squid is enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. But wait until you see what this creature can really do. This horrific-looking squid has an otherworldly appearance with large red eyes, skin like a bat's wings, and long trailing tentacles. But that's not even the scariest part. No, because the vampire squid is also capable of turning its skin inside out to swallow its prey. And no, it doesn't just eat meat, it feasts on blood. That's right, this creature really is a living vampire. So let's dive into today's episode where we'll be answering is the vampire squid actually a real animal, or is it some sort of myth? How does the vampire squid survive, and how big can they get? And why exactly is this squid called a vampire? Let's start with the basics. There are no official records of the discovery of the vampire squid. It was first described by scientists in 1903 when 2 specimens were collected from the coast of Brazil. However, since then, many more have been discovered throughout the world's oceans. Although the vampire squid might seem like something straight out of a horror movie, it's very much real. You can find it lurking at depths between 600 and 900 meters where it feeds on sinking organic matter. The vampire squid's name comes from its unique method of feeding, which is where it differs from your typical squid. While most squid species use their tentacles to capture prey, the vampire squid instead uses its webbed arms to create a pocket of water in which it sucks its food. But what exactly is this food? Well, that's the second part of the puzzle. The vampire squid eats essentially anything that enters its mouth, and this includes small fish, crustaceans, and even feces. Yes, this squid is quite literally a scavenger. However, it prefers to feed on particles of decomposing animals and plants known as marine snow. Marine snow is made up of dead animals, fish, fecal matter, decomposed plant matter, and other organic debris that falls through the water column in the ocean. As these particles fall, they create a slow, steady stream of food that the vampire squid relies upon. These deep sea waters are incredibly dark, so the vampire squid has adapted to eating whatever floats past it. Sometimes this is fish poop, but other times it can be a tasty morsel of flesh. Although the vampire squid isn't selective about what it eats, it does prefer certain types of prey. For example, it seems that the vampire squid is particularly fond of jellyfish. In fact, researchers found that a specimen they had been observing had fed almost exclusively on these creatures. The jellyfish must have been incredibly nutritious because the squid grew significantly over the course of the study. Even though the vampire squid is primarily a scavenger, sometimes it does hunt. Occasionally, it will chase down live prey such as plankton and small fish. But for the most part, the vampire squid's diet consists of marine snow, fecal matter, and the occasional jellyfish. But what does this squid look like? How does it turn its insides out? And how big can they get? Well, let's take a closer look. First off, the vampire squid's appearance is truly terrifying. Its large red eyes give it an eerie, otherworldly look, and its skin is a deep purple color. It has 8 arms, 2 long tentacles, and a mantle that can grow up to 8 inches across. What really sets this squid apart from other deep-sea species is its ability to turn its stomach inside out to eat its prey. This adaptation allows it to consume food that is larger than its mouth, such as jellyfish and fecal matter. Essentially, the vampire squid has evolved to take advantage of a little-known ecological phenomenon. Marine snow, the substance that makes up a significant portion of the vampire squid's diet, is constantly falling from the surface of the ocean to the depths. This creates a unique ecosystem of scavengers such as the vampire squid that feed on the organic debris as it sinks. By scooping up marine snow with its webbed arms, the vampire squid creates a vortex of water that sucks the food into its mouth. But the trickiest part of this process is actually getting the food out of its mouth. Jellyfish, for example, can have stinging cells that the squid needs to avoid. To do this, it expels its stomach contents out of its mouth and into the surrounding water. This allows the squid to capture the food while leaving the dangerous cells behind. After that, it simply pulls its stomach back into its body and digests the food as usual. So now, you know that the vampire squid can turn its stomach inside out to eat its prey. But what about its size? How big can these creatures get? Well, the good news is that the vampire squid is relatively small. On average, they only reach around 4 inches in length. However, there have been reports of individuals growing up to 12 inches long. The largest specimen ever recorded was captured at the coast of Japan in 2004 and measured 14 inches from its mantle to the tip of its longest tentacle. Now, let's move on to reproduction. Not much is known about the vampire squid's mating habits, But what scientists do know is that it's a broadcast spawner. This means that males release sperm into the water, where it fertilizes eggs released by females. Once the eggs are fertilized, they develop into tiny baby squids. Unfortunately, after this point, the parents play no further role in raising their young, and the babies are essentially on their own. Baby vampire squids don't look like miniature versions of their parents. Instead, they're shaped more like traditional squid with elongated bodies and too long tentacles. However, as they mature, they undergo a remarkable transformation. Their bodies become stockier and their tentacles shrink, eventually developing into the characteristic webbed arms that are used for capturing prey. This process takes several months, and during this time, young squids are still feeding on plankton and other small prey. Only after they have grown to be around 4 inches long do they start hunting larger prey such as jellyfish and fish. If you've stuck around this far into the video, chances are you're intrigued by this mysterious creature. And the next part is where we'll explore the science behind what makes the vampire squid such a fascinating animal. First off, the vampire squid belongs to a group of animals called cephalopods, which also includes octopus and cuttlefish. Cephalopods are characterized by their intelligence, complex nervous system, and ability to change color. The vampire squid is actually the only member of its genus Vampiroteuthis. The word Vampiroteuthis comes from the Greek words for blood, referring to its deep red color, and the Latin word for squid, teuthida. Together, these words form a unique scientific name that reflects the squid's distinct characteristics. But that's not the only interesting thing about its scientific classification. The vampire squid is also notable for being a member of the order Vampiromorphida. This order includes 5 families of deep-sea squid that are known for their large eyes and unusual adaptations. For example, another member of this order, the Japanese vampire squid, has bioluminescent skin that it uses to camouflage itself in the dark depths of the ocean. These adaptations reflect the squid's need to survive in one of the most extreme environments on Earth. Speaking of its environment, the vampire squid lives in the benthic zone of the ocean, which is the bottom layer of the water column. This zone is characterized by low oxygen levels, high pressure, and complete darkness. As a result, many animals that live in the benthic zone have special adaptations that allow them to survive in these conditions. For example, the vampire squid has a unique respiratory pigment that allows it to absorb oxygen efficiently, even in low oxygen environments. It also has special proteins in its blood that prevent it from being crushed by the immense water pressure at these depths. These adaptations are essential for the survival of the vampire squid and other deep-sea creatures. In terms of predators, the vampire squid is at the top of the food chain. It's too large and too well adapted for any other creatures to hunt it. However, it does have one natural enemy, humans. Since the vampire squid is so elusive and difficult to find, it hasn't been studied extensively. Much of what we know about this creature is based on specimens that have been dredged up from the ocean floor using specialized fishing gear. However, this process is not without its challenges. The vampire squid lives at such great depths that it's often dead before it reaches the surface. As a result, studying live specimens is rare, and scientists have had to rely on preserved samples to learn about this creature. Despite these challenges, scientists have been able to learn a lot about the vampire squid and its unique adaptations. They've discovered that it has a unique ability to regulate its buoyancy, which allows it to stay at the same depth without expending energy. This is important because the deep-sea environment is full of dangers, and conserving energy is essential for survival. Overall, the vampire squid is a truly fascinating creature. Its unique adaptations, eerie appearance, and elusive nature have made it a popular subject in the study of deep-sea biology. While there is still much that scientists don't know about this creature, each new discovery adds to our understanding of the amazing animals that live in the darkest depths of our oceans. And now it's time for us to make our move. That's right, folks. The vampire squid might be terrifying, but it's nothing compared to the predator that lurks in the depths of your screen. If you want to keep watching, click the link in the description below. But be careful, because once you do, there's no turning back. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, stay curious,